Big Travy, we got some big news last week that shook the fantasy community, dare I say? No, not really. We're talking Joe Flacco to the Broncos right after this.
So Joe Flacco gets traded to the Broncos. You got the details on this trade, Johnny?
All right. So first, all right. I'll tell you. I'll tell you what the deets are, and then I just want to.
I wish you would.
Okay.
Because I just asked you.
Okay. So details are fourth rounder for Joe Flacco traded from the Denver Broncos to Baltimore Ravens. The pick. I know.
Like,
Joe Flacco is now on the Denver Broncos. All right. We had Case Keenum there. All right, Travis. They traded for a elite Joe Flacco. No, not so elite.
Nah.
Okay.
Well, let me just give you a couple breakdown here.
All right.
Okay, so the line of thinking is that they're upgrading from Case Keenum. Well, if you look at the yards per completion for Case Keenum, that's 11.1. And then you look at Joe Flacco's, that's 10.9. Then I've got an 84.5 passer or QB rating for Case Keenum, and Joe Flacco's sitting at an 84.1. So literally not an upgrade. A downgrade is what you'd call it based on those numbers. And, if you're being generous, it's a lateral move, right? It just went across the way.
The highs, the lows,
and everything
in between.
So the only thing I can say here is that Denver's looking to get back in the playoffs, and they're hoping that Joe Flacco's experience in the playoffs will help them go forward. I'm not buying it.
He certainly devastated them a few years ago.
Right. He's the reason they didn't move on, and in their Super Bowl run, they knocked off the Broncos.
Yep.
Tim Tebow-led Broncos.
So
was that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Travis, this is something that I find kind of funny. And there's actual conspiracy theory that John Elway is secretly choosing quarterbacks that are awful so that way he can remain the best quarterback in Denver Broncos history. Do you believe in this? Do you believe in this conspiracy theory?
No.
Okay, do you think he's just a terrible GM?
No, he's won a Super Bowl. Name another GM that's won a Super Bowl that's still a GM right now.
But did he?
I mean, there's a few, obviously, but what I'm saying is he is the reason that we accredit Peyton Manning going to Denver, having a tough conversation with Peyton Manning, recruiting Peyton Manning to go to Denver, getting them that Super Bowl. I think Elway knows what he's won with, and that's a great defense paired with a good enough quarterback. I think he's looking to get back to that model. I will say this. I think that Elway is pitching a run at ownership. I think he's gearing up to try and get a piece of that ownership. Don't know if he'll be successful in that, but I think he's got a little bit of a short window with Von Miller, and he sees it, and he's trying to take advantage of that. So we'll just kind of see. I don't see him beating the Chiefs, let alone the Chargers. So I can't see it happening.
And I would agree with that. But, Travis, I want to flip this over to a fantasy aspect of this.
We are the fantasy whisperers.
Yeah, so I got to bring it up,
Please.
right? So with Joe Flacco going to Denver Broncos and you essentially saying that this is just a lateral move, so does that mean that you're still off of, Courtland, Sutton, guys like that? Emmanuel Sanders coming back from injury, if he even comes back to the Denver Broncos, they could cut him, or is he a free agent this year?
Emmanuel Sanders?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe so.
Oh, no. You're right.
I believe he's still under contract, but I think obviously it's the Achilles injury.
Yeah.
That's really been a devastator for a lot of guys, and he's getting up there in age. Courtland Sutton, though, for me, and I said this on Instagram when I went live on Instagram with the Joe Flacco news. Courtland Sutton gets a huge upgrade here. You look at a guy that has consistently been upwards of 6.7 yards per attempt in his career in Joe Flacco. And, yeah, it's not blowing the doors off you by any means, but he loves to throw the ball deep. And you look at what John Brown was able to do in this offense. Johnny, you can tell the people a little bit about John Brown as a Phoenix, Arizona native. But, I think for me, Courtland Sutton already showed deep ball ability. The problem was Keenum loves the slot, and
Right.
so he continuously targets the slot. They're moving to a guy named Joe Flacco. I think that with a strong run game, which they showed they had last year in Phillip Lindsay, and that play action, moving Courtland Sutton down the field will be relatively easy for the Broncos.
One guy I want to say to watch out for, certainly in preseason, especially if Joe Flacco does start, which he should, I guess, if he's getting traded for a 4th rounder, is tight end Jake Butt. Now, the tight end landscape super thin, and I think that if we talk about it in our in one of our videos about the scarcity of tight ends and the tight end strategy this year in 2019, Travis, this is a guy who we know that Joe Flacco tends to favor the tight end position, and Jake Butt had a lot of upside coming out of college, out of Michigan. And so, to me, he's an interesting guy to watch during preseason and training camp and see if he can build a rapport with Joe Flacco. And that might be a potential tight end that you could either stream or, dark horse, throw a dart at the end of a draft and maybe it's a George Kittle kind of situation. I'm not saying that.
I think that if anybody's going to be an interesting tight end, it's going to be a guy named Butt. So I think that he fits the mold for what they're looking for out of that position there.
Yeah.
And I think that Joe Flacco is going to be looking for Butt all the time.
So what do you think this has or what fantasy ramifications does this have on the tailbacks, knowing that Phillip Lindsay still coming back from wrist surgery? They didn't, surprisingly, I don't know how, use him a whole lot in the passing game. So Joe Flacco is really good with the play action. And
yeah, but it kind of stops there, and that's because he's not mobile, right?
Time to go mobile.
That's right. So you look at a guy like Flacco compared to Keenum. Keenum could run those bootleg out, the sweeps. He has a little bit of legs on him,
Yep.
Not anything crazy, but definitely more mobile than Joe Flacco. So for me, you kind of lose some of that action game if you're, the run-pass option game. But I do think if you've looked at Flacco's past, you've seen successful guys. And most recently, you look at Alex Collins, who had a successful run with him. You look at guys that were, behind Alex Collins that were in this offense, even back in the days of Ray Rice there at the end. So you look at a guy.
We don't bring him up on the show.
Yeah, well, you look at guys that have been successful with Joe Flacco at quarterback, so he can get it done. I'm more concerned with Flacco's injury history at this point. He's had a hip, a back, an ACL. This guy is getting up there in age. He's like my grandpa. He's just like, we need to get him his own walker just to get him around the facility.
Hey, but John Elway was super pumped about getting this guy. He was walking around the office. High five.
It's
high
because
five, bro, and no one was giving it back. He had no idea. This is terrible. Whisper Nation, we want to know what you think. Do you think this was a good signing by John Elway? Do you like that Joe Flacco went to the Denver Broncos? Or do you think that there are any really good fantasy ramifications that come from Joe Flacco going to the Denver Broncos? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, please hit that subscribe and the bell so you can get notifications anytime we release a new video. That's Big Travy. I'm Johnny Game Time Hicks, and we're out. Peace.
Peace.